Ladies and gentlemen, there are seasons in life when everything seems to be shifting at once. What once felt stable suddenly becomes uncertain. Doors you expected to remain open begin to close. Relationships change, plans fall apart. Opportunities disappear. And in those moments, it is easy to believe that your life is moving backward when, in reality, God is rearranging everything in your favor. You may not understand the movement right now, but you do not have to understand every change to trust the direction of your life. Sometimes what feels like disruption is actually divine repositioning. Sometimes the delay is protecting you from something you cannot see. Sometimes the ending you cried over is creating space for the beginning you prayed for. Stop judging your future by what is happening in your present. There are things being moved behind the scenes that you cannot yet recognize. There are connections being shifted. There are opportunities being redirected. There are environments you are being removed from because they can no longer support the person you are becoming. There are old versions of you that have to be released before the new version of your life can breathe. And I know change can be uncomfortable. You wanted everything to stay familiar. You wanted the people you loved to stay the same. You wanted the plan to happen exactly when you expected it. You wanted the answer to come when you were ready for it. But sometimes God loves you too much to give you everything according to your schedule. There is a bigger picture. What looks like rejection may actually be redirection. What looks like losing may actually be preparation. What looks like silence may actually be a season where your character is becoming strong enough to carry what you have been asking for. Do not panic because things are moving. Some things have to move so you can move. You have spent too much time trying to hold together what God is intentionally allowing to change. You keep asking why something ended when you should be asking what the ending is making room for. You keep staring at the closed door when there may be another door opening somewhere you have not yet looked. There comes a moment when you have to release the need to control every outcome. You have to say, I may not know what is next, but I trust that what is next can still be better than what I lost. That is faith. Faith does not mean you never feel afraid. Faith means fear does not get the final word. Faith means you can cry and still continue. You can grieve and still believe. You can experience disappointment without deciding that your entire future is doomed. You are not finished because something failed. You are not forgotten because something took longer than expected. You are not behind because somebody else arrived before you. Your journey has its own timing. Comparison will make you question blessings that have not arrived yet. You will look at someone else's chapter and become frustrated with your page, but you cannot measure your progress by someone else's timeline. You do not know what they had to survive to reach that place, and they do not know what your journey required. Stay focused. God is rearranging your life in ways that may not make sense today, but will make sense later. One day you may look back at the thing you begged to keep and realize that losing it was part of your freedom. One day you may remember the rejection that broke your heart and realize it protected your future. One day you may understand why certain people could not come with you. Not everyone can enter your next chapter, and that does not make you bitter. It makes you wiser. There are people who were assigned to a season, not a lifetime. There are places that were necessary for your growth, but were never designed to become your permanent home. There are experiences that taught you lessons you could never have learned through comfort. Take the lesson. Relentless the pain. Keep moving. Do not let yesterday's disappointment become tomorrow's identity. You have survived things you once believed would destroy you. You have walked through moments when you did not know how you would make it. Yet somehow you are still here. That means there is something inside you that refuses to quit. Protect that part of you. When everything feels uncertain, return to what you know. God is still God. Your purpose is still meaningful. Your life still has value. Your future has not been canceled because your present feels confusing. Sometimes the greatest transformation begins when you stop demanding that everything look familiar. You may be entering a season where you have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. You may have to walk without having every detail explained. You may have to trust without seeing the entire road. But remember this. A rearranged life can become a restored life. The pieces may look scattered, but scattered does not mean destroyed. Sometimes the pieces have to be moved before they can be placed into something more beautiful. So breathe. Let the old structure fall if it can no longer hold the new life being built within you. Let certain doors close. Let certain conversations end. Let certain expectations die. Let yourself outgrow what once felt normal. You do not have to chase what is no longer aligned with your purpose. You do not have to beg people to recognize your value. You do not have to force doors open. You do not have to convince the world that you are worthy. Keep becoming, keep praying, keep believing, keep showing up, because what is meant for you will not require you to destroy yourself just to maintain it. The right opportunities will meet you with room to grow. The right relationships will not demand that you abandon yourself. The right season will not require you to become someone you were never created to be. God is rearranging everything in your favor. Even when the rearrangement feels like loss, trust the process, trust the preparation, trust the timing, and most importantly, trust that your story is still being written. You may be looking at unfinished pieces, but God sees the completed picture. You may see confusion, but God sees purpose. You may see an ending, but God may be preparing a beginning that exceeds what you thought was possible. So lift your head. Stop mourning every closed door. Stop questioning every delay. Stop assuming that every change is punishment. Some changes are protection. Some delays are preparations. Some endings are freedom. Some disappointments are redirection. And some seasons of uncertainty are the very places where your greatest transformation begins. You are not losing everything. You are being repositioned. You are not being forgotten. You are being prepared. You are not falling apart. You are being rearranged. And when the pieces finally come together, you will understand why some things had to move, why some doors had to close, why some people had to leave, and why some prayers required patience before the answer could arrive. Sometimes life changes in ways you never expected, and the hardest part is not the change itself, but the uncertainty that comes with it. You may watch a door close and immediately wonder what you did wrong. You may lose an opportunity you worked hard for and question whether you were ever meant to have it. You may experience rejection from people you thought would always stand beside you, and suddenly you begin questioning your own worth. But not every closed door is a punishment. Not every ending is a failure. Not every loss means you are losing your future. Sometimes what feels like loss is actually divine rearrangement. You have to learn how to stop judging your entire story by one painful chapter. A chapter can be difficult without being the conclusion. A season can be uncomfortable without being meaningless. What you see as an interruption may be the very thing moving you closer to where you need to be. There are moments when you pray for something to stay, but it keeps slipping away. You try to hold the relationship together. You try to keep the opportunity alive. You try to make the situation work because you cannot imagine what life will look like without it. Yet sometimes you are fighting to preserve something that was never designed to travel with you into your next season. That is why you cannot allow disappointment to convince you that your life is falling apart. Maybe it is coming together differently. Maybe the rejection is making room for alignment. Maybe the delay is developing patience, wisdom, and strength. Maybe the unexpected ending is creating space for a new beginning. You may not see the purpose while you are standing inside the pain, but perspective changes when you have enough distance to look back. Do not let what left your hands become the reason you stop believing in what can still enter your life. You have to leave room for possibilities you cannot currently see. Your plans may have changed, but your purpose has not disappeared. Your timeline may look different, but your future is still valuable. Sometimes the greatest blessing is not receiving what you wanted, but being redirected away from what would have limited who you were becoming. Learn to trust the rearrangement, even when the pieces do not make sense yet. There comes a point when you have to stop exhausting yourself trying to control every detail of your life. You can plan, prepare, work hard, and make wise decisions, but you cannot control every person, every outcome, every opportunity, or every timing. Sometimes the peace you have been searching for will only come when you release the need to know exactly how everything will unfold. You do not need every answer before you take the next step. You do not need to understand the entire journey before you continue walking. There are seasons when all you can see is one step ahead, and that has to be enough. You may want clarity about the future, but sometimes clarity comes after obedience, not before it. You discover the next door by being willing to leave the door that has already closed. Stop chasing what requires you to constantly prove your worth. Stop forcing relationships to remain alive when they continually drain your spirit. Stop begging opportunities to recognize your potential. There is a difference between persistence and desperation. Persistence says, I will continue to grow. Desperation says, I must make this particular thing work or my life is over. Your life is bigger than one opportunity. Your future is bigger than one relationship. Your purpose is bigger than one disappointment. When something does not work out, give yourself permission to grieve it without making it your permanent identity. You can acknowledge that something hurt without deciding that you will never trust again. You can admit that you are disappointed while still believing that better days are possible. Sometimes surrender is not giving up. Surrender is releasing your grip on the outcome while continuing to do your part. Work hard, but do not worship the result. Prepare, but do not panic. Pray, but do not become consumed by the timeline. Move forward, but do not allow anxiety to convince you that you must have everything figured out today. There is freedom in saying, I will do what I can, and I will trust the rest. The moment you release what you cannot control, you create room for peace. You begin noticing opportunities you were too distracted to see. You become more patient with the process. You stop interpreting every delay as rejection and every change as failure. Let go of the need to force the picture into the shape you imagined. Sometimes the rearrangement is necessary because the life ahead requires a different arrangement than the one you originally planned. There is a version of you that had to survive certain seasons, but that does not mean you have to remain that person forever. Growth requires you to recognize when an old mindset, habit, relationship, or expectation no longer fits the life you are becoming. Sometimes the greatest evidence that you are changing is realizing that what once felt normal no longer feels right. You cannot enter a new season while constantly trying to recreate the old one. There are things you have to outgrow. You have to outgrow the need for everyone's approval. You have to outgrow the fear of being misunderstood. You have to outgrow the habit of explaining yourself to people who have already decided how they want to see you. You have to outgrow environments where you continually shrink yourself just to make other people comfortable. Growth can feel lonely because not everyone will understand the person you are becoming. Some people knew the version of you that tolerated everything. They knew the version that stayed quiet when you were hurting. They knew the version that accepted less because you were afraid of losing what little you had. But when you begin setting boundaries, protecting your peace, and recognizing your value, some relationships may change. Do not automatically assume that every change is a tragedy. Sometimes distance is necessary for growth. You cannot keep carrying every old expectation into a new chapter. Maybe you thought success would look one way, but life is teaching you that fulfillment can look completely different. Maybe you thought certain people would always be part of your future, but their role was connected to a season you have already completed. Release without bitterness. You do not have to hate what you outgrow. You can appreciate what a season taught you and still choose to move forward. You can honor the memories without returning to the same place. You can be grateful for people who helped shape you without forcing them to remain in every chapter. The new version of you needs room. Room to think differently. Room to dream again. Room to heal. Room to discover your strengths. Room to make decisions based on purpose rather than fear. Do not be ashamed of becoming someone different. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to establish healthier boundaries. You are allowed to stop participating in patterns that once kept you trapped. The rearrangement may require you to leave behind what is familiar, but unfamiliar does not automatically mean wrong. Sometimes unfamiliar simply means you are finally walking beyond the limits you once accepted. There will be moments when you look at your life and wonder how all the scattered pieces could possibly come together. You may see unanswered questions, unexpected changes, closed doors, and plans that did not work out the way you imagined. But just because you cannot see the finished picture does not mean there is no picture being formed. Sometimes you are standing too close to the pieces to recognize the beauty of what they are becoming. You have to learn to believe beyond what you can currently see. Your present circumstances do not have the authority to define your entire future. A difficult season can be real without being permanent. A setback can hurt without becoming the end of your story. You may be walking through uncertainty today while carrying the seeds of something greater for tomorrow. Do not allow temporary confusion to make you doubt your permanent potential. There are times when everything seems to happen at once. One thing changes, then another, and suddenly you feel as though you have lost your sense of direction. But instead of assuming that everything is falling apart, consider that some things may simply be moving into their proper position. The pieces are being rearranged. Your priorities may change. Your relationships may change. Your dreams may become clearer. Your confidence may grow. Your understanding of yourself may deepen. What once seemed like a devastating interruption may eventually become the turning point that taught you how to walk with greater wisdom. You do not need to know exactly how everything will work out. You only need enough courage to keep moving. Keep showing up when motivation is low. Keep working when results are slow. Keep believing when circumstances challenge your confidence. Keep becoming the person who can handle the life you are asking for. And when you experience another disappointment, resist the temptation to declare that nothing is working. One unanswered prayer does not mean every prayer is ignored. One closed door does not mean every door is closed. One difficult season does not mean your entire life will remain difficult. Give yourself permission to hope again. There is still possibility ahead of you. There are still lessons to learn, relationships to discover, opportunities to recognize, and dreams to pursue. The story is not finished simply because this chapter is difficult. Sometimes you have to trust the process before you can understand the purpose. Sometimes you have to walk through the uncertainty before you reach the clarity. Sometimes you have to release the picture you imagined so you can receive a life that is more aligned with who you are becoming. So keep your heart open, keep your vision forward, and keep believing that the pieces can come together in ways you never expected. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is one thing I want you to carry with you from this message, it is this. Do not mistake rearrangement for destruction. Just because your life does not look the way you expected does not mean it is going in the wrong direction. Sometimes the greatest transformations begin in seasons that feel uncertain, uncomfortable, and completely outside of your control. You may have experienced doors closing, relationships changing, opportunities disappearing, plans being delayed, or dreams taking longer than expected. You may have wondered why things could not simply remain the way they were. But sometimes what you wanted to preserve was not what you were meant to carry forward. God is rearranging everything in your favor. The closed door may be protecting you. The delay may be preparing you. The rejection may be redirecting you. The ending may be creating space for something new. The season that feels empty may actually be making room for something more meaningful. So stop looking at every change as a loss. Some things had to move because you were moving. Some things had to end because you were growing. Some people had to leave because they could not accompany you into the next chapter. Some plans had to change because your future required a different path. You do not have to understand every detail to keep walking. You do not have to know how every piece will fit together before you trust the process. Your responsibility is not to control the entire picture. Your responsibility is to keep becoming, keep learning, keep growing, keep believing, and keep moving forward. Release what you cannot control. Release the need to force people to stay. Release the need to make every opportunity work. Release the fear that says your best days are behind you. Release the belief that one disappointment has the power to define your entire future. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to dream again. You are allowed to believe again. And you are allowed to become someone your former self would hardly recognize. Do not be afraid of the rearrangement. The pieces may look scattered right now, but scattered does not mean ruined. Sometimes the pieces have to be moved before they can be placed into something stronger, wiser, healthier, and more beautiful. One day, you may look back and thank God for the doors that did not open. You may understand why certain relationships ended. You may finally recognize the purpose behind the waiting. You may realize that the disappointment you thought was breaking you was actually pushing you toward a better direction. So breathe, trust the process. Keep your heart open. Keep your eyes forward. And when you cannot see the next step, take the step you can see. Your story is not over. Your purpose has not disappeared. Your future has not been canceled. What feels like confusion today can become clarity tomorrow. What feels like an ending can become the beginning of something you never imagined. God is rearranging everything in your favor. And even when you cannot see the whole picture, you can still trust that every piece has a purpose. So walk forward with courage, release the fear of what is changing, and believe that the life ahead of you can be greater than the life you had to leave behind. Keep going, keep believing, and never forget. Sometimes the greatest blessing begins with the rearrangement you once feared.